If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're listening to LSU Daily with Matt Musso, your home for all things LSU sports.
Off and running here on another edition of LSU Daily. Welcome in, and glad to have you along for the ride. We have a jam-packed show here today. LSU football, they trudge along in spring practice. I want to talk about the defensive tackle position a little bit here today, as Brian Kelly and Blake Baker both addressed that position in their media availabilities, their most recent media availabilities, and it's really telling from what you can expect from that group. LSU baseball, they defeat Mississippi State on Thursday night, 8-6, to take game number 1 of that series. Boy, that was an entertaining, exciting game where you learned some things about LSU, not necessarily the team, but how they might function going forward. I want to dive into all of that exhilarating comeback from the Tigers. And, of course, Kim Mulkey and the ladies, they are up in Spokane. Sweet 16 gets underway on Friday evening against the 2-seed NC State, a team LSU is quite familiar with. So we'll kind of go through all of it here on LSU Daily. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you have not already. Wherever you get your podcasts, please share. That's always greatly appreciated. And, of course, follow me on social media as well. Twitter X at Musso Matthew. You can find me on Facebook, Matt Musso, and on Instagram as well. All right, let's go ahead and dive right into it. As always, we will begin, when we have it, we will begin with LSU football. Tigers are, I believe, 10 practices into spring now out of their allotted 15, and we have talked plenty about really every position on the squad. Cornerback, safety, really, taking hold of the defense conversation. There's been some linebacker talk mixed in there as well. On the offense, Nuss, his backups, the running backs, receiver, offensive line especially. We've talked really about everything. The one position that many haven't really talked about yet is defensive tackle. Obviously, we've talked about Kyle Williams coming in and, taking over the role as the position coach for the group. But we haven't really talked about what the unit is going to bring to the 2025 LSU defense. Because, look, they were pretty good a year ago. Even after Jacoby and Guillory went down, which, y'all, when that happened, I remember we did a station survey for LouisianaSports.net about LSU's most, I can't remember how we termed it, but basically it was the player that LSU could not afford to lose. And mine was Jacoby and Guillory, because you just didn't have proven depth behind him. But when you lost him, you forced a lot of those young guys, Ahmad Bro, Dominic McKinley. You kicked Paris Shand in to give you a veteran presence. Gio Paez, who was your veteran transfer, really, really stepped up. And you got a lot of valuable reps for young guys. And you didn't really, like I say, you didn't miss Guillory. Of course you did. But you were more than serviceable there for the year, really. He went down in that Nichols game. So it's I guess that might be one reason that nobody's really talked about it, because you held your own, and now you're going to get Guillory back and all those things. But this defensive line group, this defensive tackle group is different this season. There's kind of two things you notice when you look at them. There's more depth, and they are large human beings. Much bigger than a year ago. In 2024, of the 10 defensive tackles LSU had on the roster, 6 of them checked in under 300 pounds. Y'all, that is completely flipped here for 2025. Like, literally. Of the 10 you have on your roster right now in spring, 6 of them are 3 bills or higher. And size was something that Brian Kelly and his staff emphasized heading into this season.
It's intentional. Sadir Mitchell, he was brought here to bring size to our defense, and he certainly brings that size. Sean Washington is playing at a higher level. His size is clear in terms of what he brings. Obviously, McKinley is got the great size that you're looking for inside as well. And then it's just a matter of getting reps for some of the younger players. Jacobian is going to be back for us. That gives us another very physically strong player that will fit this scheme very well because of his quickness. He's going to be a guy that's going to be in the backfield a lot. So with Ahmad, we feel really, really good about where we're at the defensive tackle position.
The first guy he mentions there, Sadir Mitchell, said he's brought here to bring size to the defense. Y'all, 6'6", 355. And he's not the only one. Zion Williams, a freshman in his first spring year, 6'4", 355. You've got Sean Washington, who he mentioned in that cut, up to 3 bills and slightly over. Dom McKinley's actually dropped a little bit of weight, 6'6", 306. I mean, Dylan Battle, another freshman's at 6'2", 315. Obviously, Jacobian Guillory at 6'2", 320, who you're going to get back. And you heard Kelly there say he's going to be in the backfield an awful lot. More on that momentarily. But they've completely revamped how that unit looks. And I'm going to tell you right now, Sadir Mitchell, while he doesn't have a lot of college football experience under his belt, he played very sparingly at Texas. He has flashed. He has flashed and flashed throughout spring. And if he gets some consistency, that's a guy who's probably going to end up being in your 2 deep. I mean, he's going to be in your 2 deep regardless. But if he gets some consistency, man, you end up rotating in a dude 6'6", 355 on rundowns, when you just need a space eater in the middle. That's going to be huge. Huge. Because you already returned your 2 best run defenders from a year ago in Dominic McKinley and Ahmad Bro. They were the highest, both of those guys were the highest graded run defenders on LSU's team a season ago per Pro Football Focus at the defensive tackle position. McKinley, 69.5 grade, and Ahmad Bro, slightly behind him, 66.2. And you bring both of those guys back. And then again, oh, by the way, Jacobian Guillory is going to return as well. You give me a 2 deep, which, by the way, your starting, your first team, I should say, defensive tackles for the majority of spring have been McKinley and Bro. You give me a 2 deep of McKinley, Bro, Guillory, Mitchell, and then you have, Sean Washington, and then maybe a freshman like Zion Williams at 355 as your threes. Y'all, that's incredibly deep. That's reason enough to be excited. Just the space that these guys are going to take up in the middle of LSU's defense and how that can open up so much more for the backers, for the ends, your nickel, everything. But that isn't even the reason I'm actually just so high on this position. Blake Baker met with the media on Thursday, and he was asked about Kyle Williams, but specifically what Kyle Williams was bringing to the defense in his first year as the defensive tackle coach.
He actually brought this up to me. When he first got into the league, it was much more capturing blocks and trying to hold blocks off linebackers. And for his body type and everything, that necessarily wasn't his strong suit. But whenever he was allowed to get vertical and create havoc and knockback, that's when his career really took off and he became a Pro Bowler. And I think that's what he's bringing to our guys. This defense, forever and ever, we talk about the defensive tackles are the tip of the spear, man. And we got to be able to create knockback and havoc. And I thought we got a little stale from that standpoint last year, and that's on me. But having him do it at a high level, and then he's very, very good at articulating it to the players. I think he's done an outstanding job. I think you're already seeing that. Some of our guys being able to use their quick twitch and their get off and create havoc in the backfield. It's helped us, and they're starting to see themselves make plays. Now they're wanting to do it more and more.
So that's what's so exciting to me. Havoc. It's not that these guys are big. They are. And you love the size. But they're all so athletic. You heard Brian Kelly talk about Jacobian Guillory at 6'2", 320, talk about he's going to be in the backfield a lot. And a lot of that's Kyle Williams' influence. But it's also just the natural athletic ability that Guillory has. I mean, you pair that with a guy like Kyle Williams, who has done or who has created havoc as a player at the highest level of football and is great, as you heard Blake Baker say, articulating it to the players. that just gets you even more excited, because then you look at a guy like Dominic McKinley, who is probably the most athletic of all of them at the defensive tackle position. Again, 6'6", 306. Do you remember his first play as an LSU Tiger? His debut? It was against UCLA. He got a sack. His first tackle was a sack. He made 7 tackles a season ago. 3 of them were sacks. That's a guy who's extremely athletic, extremely quick, but big. And is going to flourish, I think, with Kyle Williams as his coach, because he's going to be put in more and more positions to get after the quarterback from the middle of your defense, which you don't always see from the defensive tackle spot. And pressure up the middle is the most effective pressure. This is the most uncomfortable pressure for a quarterback. I'm really excited because you have the space eaters. Man, you got some athletic guys as well. McKinley, Bro, Guillory. And they should be able to get after the quarterback. Blake Baker's defense is all about creating havoc, and it's something that LSU actually did quite well a season ago. It was everything else that just didn't work. But when it came time for them to get after it, create negative plays, they were pretty good at that. So I'm fired up, y'all. I'm fired up to watch that interior defensive line group get after it here come the regular season starting on August 30th at Clemson. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. We'll go LSU baseball here. Tigers come from behind, 4 runs down, a big 5-run 5th inning against Mississippi State on Thursday night to take the lead 7-6. They would add an insurance run in the 8th, and then behind stellar relief from Zach Cowan, 4 shutout. We're going to get into that. The Tigers win it 8-6 to take game 1 over Mississippi State. They'll play game 2 Friday night as of now. Again, at the time of this recording, the game is still on for 6:30. Looking at forecasts, that looks like insane and just wild behavior. But as of now, at this time of this recording, they're going to go forward with that. So we'll give you a little preview about that game as well. But let's first start with Thursday night. And, y'all, it was one that LSU had to get. Mississippi State held their Friday night ace, keep him on his normal rest in Pico Khan for game 2. So you had an opener in Evan Sierre, and then you were going to get into that bullpen early for Mississippi State. And that was when you had to win. And if you would have allowed Mississippi State to come in and steal that game, flat out, that would have sucked. There's just no other way to explain that. And early, it didn't look great. Cade Anderson struggled. He got you 4 1/3, 101 pitches, still threw a lot of strikes, but he just wasn't sharp. And he didn't put up 1-0 in that 4 1/3, 5 earned. And it was just kind of a hodgepodge. It was really hard to pin down exactly what the issue was for him. That's why I say he wasn't sharp. Because, like, you look at the 3 home runs he gave up. They were all different. Ace Reese in the first inning, after you give up a single to Bryce Chance, you fall behind in the count to Ace Reese, which is a no-no. You're down 2-0. You had to come over the plate. He didn't miss it. He drove it, as you would expect him to do, and you're immediately down 2-0. Okay, so you fell behind in the count. You had to groove one to a great hitter. He made the swing. Tip your hat, right? Anderson responded not great immediately after that, but he ended up getting out of the inning and keeping it small. Then in the second inning, the number 9 guy, Powell, hits one over the left field wall. That was in a 1-1 count. Later in the game, actually I think it was the very next inning, Hunter Hines, another solo shot. That was in a 2-2 count. So it was all different for him. He just wasn't sharp. How much of that is one day short rest? I think there's some merit to that. There's not a lot of innings under the belt for Cade Anderson yet in his career. It's more than most on this team, but he's still a true sophomore. Now it's his first time ever being put in that position, and they've brought him along so well. It was an interesting choice. So I do think that factored in a little. Jay even kind of acknowledged it after the game, said maybe fatigue was a little bit of a factor in there. But for him to not be as sharp as he's been, I think that's really kind of the only explanation, because he was just rolling throughout the first 6 weeks of the year. And every ace has a bad game. Even I'm pretty sure, I can go back and look this up, but I am pretty sure Paul Skeens gave up 7 earned runs against Kentucky in the first meeting between the two teams in 2023. Now, it didn't matter because LSU scored a bunch of runs, and LSU was up huge in that ball game. Hold on, I'm looking it up right now because I remember it so much because we talked about it so much when they met again in the regular season. Okay, he gave up 5 runs in that game. 5 runs in that game. Not 7, 5. And it didn't matter because LSU scored 16 and you run ruled them anyway. But every ace has a rough outing. They just do. And that really wasn't even a rough outing for Paul Skeens. So I fully expect him to bounce back fine. The thing I will commend him on, without his best stuff, not being as sharp. And again, I say not as sharp because here's the other evidence I would offer you on that, besides the home runs just all being different. Anderson struck out 5 guys. The last 2 weeks in SEC play, he struck out 11 in each of those. Just wasn't able to put him away. He wasn't as sharp. He'll bounce back fine. And you know what? He'll be on normal rest next week because you play on Thursday again, so he'll have a full week to recover, and I expect a much better outing from him. But the one thing he did very well, and I'll commend him on this, he battled, he fought his ass off, and he kept it small. He gave up 1 crooked number. Every other time, he pitched himself out of jams. Y'all, that 4th inning from Cade Anderson, really good. Really good. 1st and 3rd, nobody out. He only gives up 1 run. So he did a great job battling and keeping it small, and that was huge. And Connor Benj did the same thing. Benj comes in out of the bullpen, and he wasn't great by any stretch. He had 2 walks. He gave up a hit and a run in 2/3 of an inning. Wasn't awesome. But he limited it to that 1 run when it could have been more. They were 2nd and 3rd and 2 outs. But he got the out he needed and limited it. And all the while, LSU chipped away. You had the solo homer from Curiel in the 3rd. Before that, you chased home a single run on a double steal in the 2nd. So it's at 4 runs, which is right where you want to be in baseball. And then in the 5th inning, LSU explodes. The first 2 reach with walks. Dickinson comes up behind Jones. That's where he reached on a walk. This was a huge at-bat. He's behind in the count, works it back full, gets the pitch to drive, and frickin' steps on it and knocks it into the left field bleachers. And just like that, LSU was within 1 run. You go forced deeper into the Mississippi State bullpen at that point. And then Pearson comes up right behind him, left on left, singles. Milam comes up behind him, still nobody out, 2-run homer, LSU has the lead. But I want to go back to that at bat by Dickinson real quick, because all that did was further strengthen him as the protector for Jared Jones. Like, anytime Jones is put on in a spot like that, I'm not saying they intentionally walked Jones, but they definitely weren't eager to give him anything to hit in that spot. So he goes to first. And we've seen Dickinson come through in that spot before this year, but it had been a minute. And it hadn't really happened in conference play. And there it just did. And he battled up there. He proved, for one, he was a tough out, and then he was going to come through. That was just a massive, massive moment for Dickinson. After LSU takes the 7-run lead, they immediately give the ball to Zach Cowan in the 6th and say, hey, champ, we need 12 outs. And y'all, this is something I talked about on the preview at Musso at the Box, where I thought that would be LSU's approach. Because it was something they had the opportunity to do Saturday against Texas, and they didn't. And it bit them. In that Saturday game against Texas, LSU had a 1-run lead going into the bottom of the 7th inning when everything fell off the rails. You needed 9 outs. You got 7 the week before from Case and Evans, and then you saw what he did on Sunday extending. You could have gone to him in that spot and tried to nail it down and take the series. They didn't do it. And what I surmised and expected was LSU is going to shorten the game now. They are going to do whatever they can to get to Cowan and Evans the quickest and let them take you home because they have both proven that they can extend. And you knew that from Cowan anyway. He's a former Friday night starter. And boy, did he. Zach Cowan not only came in and put up LSU's first 0, he came in and stepped on Mississippi State's throat. And that's what you needed to do. It was LSU's first 0. It was also a 1-2-3 inning. He mixed his pitches incredibly well. The moxie of that kid that he has. You know what? I'm not overly surprised by that. Because this is a kid who's a senior. He's played a lot of college baseball. There's not going to be a moment too big for him, even in the SEC. And so far, there hasn't been. 4 appearances, couple saves, 1 walk, 17 punch-outs, 10 innings, 10-plus innings, a sub-1 ERA in conference play. But you go back to that outing on Thursday night, he stepped on Mississippi State's throat when LSU needed it most. When you have a big inning, you need to shut down 0, and he got that for you. And then he just cruised. 4 shutout, gave up 1 hit, didn't walk anybody, and punched out 7. And he mixed things up. He came into the game, his first 2 innings, pitched backwards, really started guys off with the changeup, and then kind of finished them fastball. His final 2 innings, got ahead more with the heater, mixed the changeup in between, and still finished with the fastball. And y'all, with that changeup that he has, and I think I actually saw a couple sliders in there from Cowan and I to go too. There was a little bit more horizontal break on some of his pitches. But with the changeup he has, it's so elite. It might be the best pitch on LSU staff. It really might be. And they've got some really good stuff on that staff. But when he flips that over, and then he brings that fastball that looks exactly the same, and the same arm slot, this everything, same arm speed, the 90-91 that it is plays up. And that's why it can play higher in the zone as well. It's got good spin rate to it, but just the deception is elite from Zach Cowan. And he was awesome. And that is how they were like, Friday night, if LSU has a lead and you need 12, 11 outs, and you have a chance to go to Case and Evans, they're going to do it. And it's what they should do. Now, that's not sustainable. You still need guys to come along in that bullpen and improve and get better. So you don't have to do that. Case and Evans has never pitched a college season. He's going to run out of gas at some point. He's about to throw the most innings he's ever thrown in his life. So you need others to step up still and develop. But until they do, in the meantime, that's a great luxury to have, and you have it. And that's how LSU should function this going forward. Thought that's what they would do. They showed it last night. Now I know that's their plan going forward. Major hat tip to Zach Cowan. He was awesome. A thought on Friday night's game. You'll face Pico Khan. That's Mississippi State's ace. He's been very, very good. Big left-hander, mid-90s fastball. Been going to the slider a lot lately. He's in a nice groove with that pitch, so you'll see that plenty as well. I think LSU can have some success against Pico Khan. I'm not saying that he's not very good. He is. He outdealed Kyson Witherspoon from Oklahoma a week ago in a 2-1 ball game. Like, he is the Friday night ace you're used to seeing in this league. But LSU has hit frontline pitching very well so far this season, and LSU has hit left-handed pitching very well. LSU, for the season, overall is hitting .355 off of lefties. That includes what you did a week ago against Texas against their 2 frontline arm lefties, like Jared Spencer, who's out there throwing 97. LSU has had a lot of success against left-handed pitching this season. They can stack that lineup with righties who are capable, and I expect them to do that. You'll probably see Fry. You'll probably see Braswell. So I believe LSU can absolutely have success against Pico Khan. And it's not to say he won't go out there and carve. Of course he can. Like, he's really good. So yes, that's also a possibility. But the sample size so far shows that LSU, they've liked facing left-handed pitching, even the front line left-handed pitching. Anthony Ianson, I would love to see them let him go deep into a ball game, a little bit deeper. I mean, I thought he pitched very well against Texas. He was a ground ball away from getting out of that fifth inning. He had a 3-run lead, and it was at 78 pitches. They went quick hook there, in my opinion. The kid's gotten stronger as the game has gone on all season. Let's let him go. Let him get stronger. And then as soon as you can, with a lead, go to Casey Evans. You do that, you're going to have a great chance to win the ball game. All right. Quick thought on the Sweet 16, LSU and NC State. Tigers beat the Wolfpack in a championship game of a tournament back in November, rather handedly. I believe it was by 17, or it might have been actually more than that. They put up 82. LSU is the favorite in this game. NC State is not the offensive team that LSU is, and I think that's what's going to end up hurting them. It's what hurt them in the last game. Michaela Williams dropped 24 in that one. I don't think they can score with LSU. I think LSU's pace is a bad matchup for them. I think LSU, the shooting that LSU shooting that LSU was on, they've put up 100 points their first 2 games in this tournament. I really like Kim Mulkey's team Friday night against the Wolfpack up in Spokane. For that reason, I think their pace is a problem for them, and I don't think NC State can score with LSU in that same regard. LSU should have an advantage on the boards in this one as well, just like they did in the first one. Like, you can say, oh, you can't take too much from the first matchup, things like that. There are certain things you can take. While the teams are different, and NC State got hot, and they only lost 2 games in the ACC, and there's some good teams in the ACC, the style of play and some of the players that LSU has, I do believe, are bad matchups. It's a very capable team, NC State. They were a Final Four team a year ago, and here they are right back in the Sweet 16. We'll see how that goes, though. But I like Kim and her squad on Friday night up in Spokane. That's going to wrap it up here on LSU Daily. Y'all subscribe, share, follow me on social media, and be here next time for more. It's LSU Daily.